Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, we're going to talk about growth marketing in our segment called That's Really Growth, where we measure the difference, or we talk about the difference between um, an increase in statistics, an increase in vanity metrics, and actual business growth. Now, for this topic, I want to dispel a few myths. I mean, oftentimes when people ask you for growth, they're going to say, as an email marketer, well, show me an increase in click rate, show me an increase in um, open rate, and like even conversion rate to some respect is not necessarily business growth. So before you even start, you have to know what it is that you are trying to get. And oftentimes, I will push my clients to get to the bottom of the real question. And to their credit, I work with smart people, so they figure it out. It's not I want more site visitors, because at the end of the year, you're not going to cut a check to your staff, to your contributors, and your VCs are not going to ask, "Hey, how many site visitors did we get?" Doesn't matter how much money we made. It's usually ARR, annual recurring revenue, MRR, monthly recurring revenue. It's usually number of paid subscribers, net positives, all that stuff. It's actual tangible results. And so when you're tasked with coming up with email sequences, and when I say email, I do mean email and friends, SMS, push notifications, any channel that your company may have. What we want to see is stuff that you did that led to a better business outcome, not necessarily a higher open rate. Because if you want a higher open rate, you can have a super clickbaity headline, and people will open it more. Will they engage more? Probably not. So we can get into the art and science of subject line in another episode. But right now, I want to focus on growth and what does drive growth. So it's getting more and more difficult to tie actions that you set with business outcomes, just because there's just a plethora now of touch points. People get retargeting on social media. They come on the site, they have an experience, they have a pop up. You get an email. Is that the email campaign broadcast every week? Is that the triggered automation you send from the website? Attribution is probably the toughest part of growth marketing. And it's also the most important in a way, because you want to know what actually is moving the needle to double down on that. And you want to drop maybe more expensive channels that don't. So it's always interesting at the end of a quarter. And this is like something super common to people who work in growth marketing, is that at the end of the quarter, you'll get the PPC people, the pay-per-click people, the people that put the display ads and social media ads. They come and they say, well, we drove, 5,000 accounts this month. And then the email people come in and say, well, our emails drove 3,000 accounts this month. And the partnerships people come and say, well, we drove 2,500 accounts this month. And the total of actual accounts that increased that month is half the total of all that added up together, a third sometimes. So clearly, a lot of people are taking a lot of credit for stuff that oftentimes you'll have the customer just came by themselves to the website, converted on their own, and three different people are taking credit for something that ultimately none of them actually did. And there's multiple examples of that. One of the crazier experiences I had was, we would send an email to anyone who enters their email at the beginning of the sign up process. That was basically, we calculated that the best time to send it was 15 minutes in, because it was a complicated financial product. So we needed to make sure the person actually dropped off before we emailed them an email to stay on and whatever. But that email had a conversion rate of like 15%, which didn't make sense, because the click rate was 7%. And that's just because a bunch of people were busy signing up, hadn't finished signing up, but were in the process of getting their papers and all that stuff. The 15-minute period passed, and they would get the email. They wouldn't know. They would finish converting, and then they would go to their inbox and find the email, open it, and some of them would click it, some of them wouldn't. Most of them wouldn't. So you would have a bunch of conversions attributed to that email if we use the open attribution. and not attributed if you had to click. And again, that email set expectations for the rest of the series that made no sense because it didn't actually convert all those people. And there was kind of no easy way to eliminate that noise. So we just had to live with it. That's just one small example of how complicated attribution can be. And that's why you need experts. My firm of choice is the Bird Rock agency led by Adam Stone, who's a master at this. Obviously, he can't handle all of America and the world, so you'll need to find your own if he's busy, and he's likely busy. Uh, but yeah, so you need to find someone that knows what they're doing in that respect. So that would be like item one is figure out what it is that you want to improve. Two, figure out what actually moves the needle currently on that. And then three is how you actually do it is you set up a test, and it's going to depend on what you're doing, but for the most part, usually it is adding an email or replacing an email. And so the a lot of people understand that you do an A/B test and sometimes you do a holdout group, but you also need a control, because if you're doing an A/B test and one of them has a promo and the other one has some other kind of promo, and you just want to know which promo is better, at the end of the day, if you're not testing against an email that doesn't contain any offer, just a generic email, maybe you're paying people to do something they would have done anyways. And that's the other side of all these promos that people use, is that, are you paying people to do something they would have done anyways? And if so, maybe you shouldn't be doing that. And if not, then keep doing it. And lastly, you want to run it against a holdout, because you want to see if it beats nothing. Many times, an email does not beat nothing. Not sending an email would not have done anything. I have this saying that an email that you send converts more than an email that you don't send, and that's for the most part true. Usually, if you send an email versus not, you're going to get some kind of action, but you have to measure it. You can't assume it's the case. Maybe it's not the right moment in the customer journey, or just maybe it's not the right email at all. So you take you take the current state, you measure what it is, you find what the baseline is before you start work. You figure out what it is you want to improve, and then you try to improve it with some kind of initiative. You test it against a control, which is a generic communication of the same kind, of the same channel, using sent to a segment of identical people. You can segment off a small portion if you want to, give yourself the most chances while remaining scientifically viable. And you test it against nothing. You test it against a holdout. So holdout, control, and then your test. If you want to A/B test, fine, but have a control and have a holdout. And to a lot of growth marketers, what I'm saying now is super obvious, and all the power to you. I hope that you can come on the show and teach us a bunch of other things, because that is what Email Geniuses is about. It's about bringing a bunch of experts in their respective fields and enlightening the rest of us about how it works. So if you're an email genius or a PPC genius or any kind of expert in growth marketing, please contact us. Description contains all the info you need, and come and tell us how you do things. So that's it for today. Very simple. Again, summarize. You want to find what you want to improve, your actual business metric. You want to measure the current state, attribute correctly your various channels to that business metric, and then do your initiative. In your initiative, have a holdout, have a control, and then see what actually moves the needle. Have you done that? Because be careful. Klaviyo, great tool, but over inclusive in terms of like the conversion and the attribution. I think it's a forever window. If you send an email once and 2 weeks later they convert, I don't know exactly, but it sure seems that way. So be careful. There's a lot of tricks. Attribution is hard, but it's worth it, because that's the only way you scale. You find things that move the needle, that actually truthfully move the needle, and you double down on them. And then you take the money from the other channels and you put it on that one, if that is how it works. So that's it for today. We'll be publishing a lot more in the coming period of time, and I'm hoping to see you again. Have a good day. See you in the next one.